Sometimes life is yikes.
And that's okay. You're not alone. Welcome to Yikesland. Hello and welcome to Yikesland. I'm Chris Fung and I'm here with my co-host,
Jelani Hoon.
And we are here talking about depression and mental illness and sad stuff and my OCD and
just going through our experiences.
A list of bad things. No, but we are so happy that you are here with us today on another Tuesday. We're proud of you for making it to another Tuesday. I'm proud of you for making it to another Tuesday, my yike.
Thank you, my yike. You guys really like me. Thank you guys so much. But welcome to Yikesland, guys. Where can they go to find us if they want information
if you want to interact with us some more, you can find us on Twitter at Yikesland, on Facebook at Yikesland, on Instagram at Yikesland_podcast, where you will see how we've been dealing with the issue that we ran out of fingers for episodes.
No more fingers!
An issue that I'm grateful for because it means we're in the double digits now.
That's right.
I don't know why I said that in that voice. Or you can email us at yikesland@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you guys. Give us some likes, give us some yikes, or give us your thoughts.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We love to hear from you guys. We want to interact with you guys out there. We want to build a relationship and a community with you guys out there. If you guys are feeling like you need someone to talk to, because one of the best things you can do when dealing with mental illness and depression is talk with someone. And if you can't find someone, please do send us something if you want, an email, and we'll try and interact back with you as well. Or just follow us on our social media pages and things like that, and you can find out about more updates about us. And please interact with us, and we will try and interact back with you as much as we can. So thank you.
So we're going to start it off like we always do, except this time I'm asking first. Jelani, how are you?
This is throwing me off. Everything's so different.
Double digits. Everything's different.
Everything shall change.
Year of the pig.
That's that's right. I don't know how that relates, but that's right. It is Chinese New Year, isn't it?
It is.
Boy. Well, it's not my year, as I was born in the year of the snake. But how I've been recently. Of course, last week we talked about the bone-chilling dream that I had.
Yes, indeed.
Recovering from that, I felt the depression hit me very hard, and it may have been like the huge swing in temperature we've had.
Oh yeah,
because we've basically went through, I don't know, all the temperatures. But yeah, so I have been feeling, I've been a little bit down. I've been really sluggish. I've been still trying to do more stuff and do more things, so I've pushed myself to get out and do more things out there, and hang out with some friends or see a show or something like that. So it's been a little sluggish lately, and I've been not like spiraling or anything like that, but it's like I'm like moving in molasses, if you will. It's not the normal me, so I can feel it. Like I'm like just really just like kind of like move, like very like antsy, very just like I can't like deal with this right now, but like I'm not spiraling or anything like that. I'm holding my ground, so that's pretty much where I am at this moment. How about you? How are you doing?
I am all right. I'm good and bad. I feel like recently I've been more up and down than normal, although that might have to do with the fact that I started drinking a bunch more coffee, and so then when I drink coffee I'm like temporarily falsely happy. But no, I've been just mostly focusing on working so very much, but trying to frame that as a positive thing where I know that it definitely bothers a lot of people in my life, like friends, but then also just like casual acquaintances and my family and everybody. It definitely bothers people that I work so much, and I know it's not necessarily sustainable or long-term healthy, but sometimes in the short term is what I feel like I need to do, and also what I feel keeps me going. And so that's why I do it. And I know that sometimes my relationships with other people suffer because of that. But it's also definitely like been keeping me alive and stuff. And I don't mean that in the really extreme sense of the word, but just like the long-term general sense. And so I have been working a ton, but also been trying to think of it in a really grateful way where I am healthy enough to work and strong enough to work, and I am lucky to have the opportunity to get to do what I do. So it's tiring, but I've sort of been almost intentionally tiring myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, have you found time for just, what's the word here? Normal, like, playing activities? Like, have you been playing, like, have you been playing stuff? Have you been, like, reading or trying to, like, really, like, get back into, like, have you seen a movie lately? Have you
I haven't seen a movie, actually. I would like to see a movie, but more so I've just been playing Kingdom Hearts here and there while I can. I do not know what's going on because of how I did not play any of the other Kingdom Hearts games.
It's a trip.
There's a small issue. But no, I've been playing that and enjoying that, and been trying to reconnect with some older friends that I haven't seen in a while. Because as I mentioned in previous episodes, I used to live in California and New York. And especially because of the Lunar New Year, I've been reaching out to my other friends, whether they're Chinese or not, but who also have New Year's around this time, and have been reaching out to them. So that's been nice. And even though we kind of only have time for short conversations, full of pig emojis, that has also been a good feeling. So
nice.
Been trying to do some of that. Well, get in the friendship where I can, even though I know I don't have time for like long friend brunches. Well, that's my idea of luxury friendship. Classic brunches? Luxury friend brunches. I don't know.
Friend brunches is the classic like friendship, like
in millennial world. Yeah, I feel like yes.
You think so?
Yeah, I feel like people are always asking you to go to brunch.
Okay. All right.
Just I thought that I would escape it when I like moved away from New York, but it turns out in Bayview there's just as much brunch as there is on the Upper East Side.
Okay. Well, this kind of leads us into, I mean, it basically leads us into like a topic, which is kind of relationships, but more in the straining of friendships that mental illness and depression can bring. We see ourselves as like, we have these bonds with people, we create these bonds with people, and sometimes there can be some strain brought on from either the mental illness that we're dealing with as like the receivee or the other person, or maybe even both at the same time. And I don't know, what is your outlook on like, you know, how to handle like these like relationships that we build with people who are essentially like our closest friends, or even just like maybe even acquaintances or things like that. Like, how do we keep that from straining too much when we are where we are?
Well, I think this is, you know, you and I have talked before about how a lot of people in our circles tend to have depression. Yeah. And it's not that I am putting a little thing in my Instagram bio that says, oh, and I'm only friends with depressed people.
Yeah.
But I think that other depressed people tend to be attracted to me, not in a romantic way, just in the regular sense of attracted. Okay. And I tend to be attracted to other depressed people, or people who struggle with other mental illnesses, or, you know, especially other OCD people for me. But I think that that kind of creates, that can create weird situations if you're at different places in your depression struggle or cycle or path, or however you like to look at that. Because obviously having depression when you're feeling worse, it becomes like your main thing, you know. It's what what your whole life is about for a while, because sometimes you don't have the energy to be around your friends. You just barely have the energy to feed yourself and stuff like that. So it becomes kind of like your main identity and everything that you're wearing. And so everything is filtered through that lens. So there will be times then when you and other depressed friends even aren't matching up in terms of what you guys both need or are able to put out. And that can become, you know, a problem. But then I also do still have some friends who aren't depressed that then aren't going to be able to, you know, they can empathize with, but not fully be where I am in terms of me talking about my depression. So there's a couple different like sort of ways that this can match up or not match up between two depressed people or a depressed and a not depressed person. And that kind of thing. And each relationship is just going to be different, even though you see stuff. You can see a couple trends that happen there.
Yeah, there's, so for me, with this topic here, so dealing with the depression that I have, right, and the way that I've like battered myself mentally and, you know, emotionally brought myself down and everything like that, I have caused like some strain on like some relationships and things like that I've had, like with friendships. And I used to have like I was pretty close with a few friends, and we were close, like you know, as brothers, if you will. But I found myself in the midst of like my spiraling out and everything that I did, really almost cutting them off, right?
Yeah,
and
isolating yourself.
And I was more of an isolation, and it wasn't anything against them really. It was more of just I couldn't see myself at that point, where the way that I had thought to myself was that it was, why would anybody want to be friends with me, right? And they shouldn't be friends with me because I'm not good,
worthy,
you know,
yeah,
you know, and they shouldn't want to be friends with me, right? And I'm just gonna end up like losing them anyway. So like I'll just get it over with now, and just like, hey, you know, I you know, stop talking to them and make distances and everything like that. And it strained out those relationships pretty bad. And you know, funny, like, you know, it's hard to say like why I did what I did, you know, like at that moment, it seemed like it was the right thing to do to me, because it was just, I didn't think that they were going to want to be my friends eventually. And so why not get it over with now, because I shouldn't be friends with anybody, you know?
And you think now that that's one of those lies that your depression tells you?
Yeah. I mean, as we've gone through this podcast more and more, and like talked more and more, and like I've heard your views, and, you know, I've talked through my views and things like that, like I can see like, yeah, that was more of just me spiraling out, me listening to the lies that it tells me and everything like that. So it breaking the bonds that we have with people, I don't think is the right path. But to a person in our state of mind, it sounds like the right thing to do.
Yeah, it feels like it makes sense.
And it's really hard. Like, I don't think that I could have been convinced not to do what I did, you know, where
Sure.
I just broke the bonds and like just distanced myself,
Sure.
you know. Because at that point, where like I even thought, like, you know, when all this happened, like it just like breaking it off and like distancing myself, because it was like at the same time, like it's gonna end anyways, they're gonna leave me anyways, and at the same time, like maybe even like deeper down, where I was like, I'm gonna leave them anyways because of where I am in my mind, you know. I'm probably just gonna leave them anyway, so might as well just save them the pain. And like they don't have to worry about it, you know. So like we're not friends, and so like when I'm gone, like they're not gonna worry about it, you know. And so that right there, I think it's a tough situation when you're dealing with that, and like for someone in our mental state, like it's never gonna sound like not the right thing to do, you know.
Yeah.
And
But I would point out though that you seem to have created like a genius workaround for yourself or a way around this, because probably, as you guys know, Jelani does other podcasts, and if you haven't seen them, check them out. But you've created like a that's a genius hack right there, because you are you've set it up so that you're almost forced to interact with other people, you know, and obviously that people that you do podcasts with are your friends and even become deeper friends with you, and they see you on a regular enough basis that you know, it's not like with casual friends, and especially in adult friendships, it's hard to make time to hang out, but it's like a predetermined thing. And so that's actually a really cool, like, almost, I don't know that you like mean it this way, but it's a really cool hack and like treatment against your depression and the things that you would tend to do because your depression's like, hey, do this, man. So that's awesome.
I do have all these workarounds right now where it's, and I do feel like I have this strong bond with like everyone who I have these shows with, and you know, anyone who I have any of these shows with, I feel like they were either people that I wanted to be closer with, and I found myself like creating this like bond with them over the podcast more, and that bond like strengthening. And you know, I hold each and every one of the hosts of all the shows just, you know, really in my heart, and like realizing, especially since we started this podcast, like realizing what we've, you know, what we're doing, or what we're trying, our goal is, and like really just talking it out and really like having this kind of weekly like therapy session between us and between us as well. I can see that I'm realizing more and more of like, well, what paths I should take easier, because I'm talking it out, and like I'm, you know, like relating it with like not only you but maybe even other people who I've talked to who've listened to the show. And I would hope that like I don't walk down the path, and like, you know, the people who I've, you know, strained that bond with and, you know, I like, it's regret that I'm gonna have, you know.
Sure.
And I wish that I hadn't like shattered those bonds, but like at the same time, like I am where I am now, and like I hope that like maybe one day, you know, the bonds can heal, and you know, we'll see each other again down the road. But in the state that I was in, like it sounded like the right thing to do, you know. And sometimes like when you're in the state that we're in, like the right thing to do in your mind isn't actually right. You know,
and I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the wrong thing to do. Like, I would say that it's not the right thing to do, in that it's not based on the real truth. It's based on your depression truth. But at the same time, it's not necessarily the wrong thing to do. Like, you're not a bad person for having done it. I think it's perfectly understandable to have that reaction. And I think a lot of people have that reaction. There are lots of people that I mean, especially during the Great Depression, I was basically just shut down and I didn't talk to anybody. And at that time, I was so bad off that I wasn't even aware of the people that I wasn't talking to or wasn't responding to enough to be like, oh man, I'm in too bad of a spot right now to respond, but I hope they forgive me later. Like, I just didn't think about them at all. And it wasn't out of like a cruelty or a lack of like what would have been a normal caring for them. It's just that I didn't care for myself. I didn't care for like living, and I didn't care for anything. And so I was incapable of being like, I hope I don't hurt this person's feelings by not responding to them. And so like I would hope that I wouldn't say that I lost any friends during that period in a very active way, but I definitely became accidentally distant from some people. If we had been closer, had been talking all the time, and then just over time, I sort of disappeared and became a shell of myself. I don't think that for me that it sort of created any like breakups as far as friendships went. But my depression definitely has strongly affected my actual relationships to the point of breakups or almost breakups, because of the kind of like the standard of interaction that you usually have in a romantic relationship that you wouldn't necessarily have in a friendship. But then again, it also provides an opportunity to almost like sort out who's really going to be there for you and care for you forever for free. Like, not that I recommend you try becoming catatonic with depression, but like, I absolutely found out who is always going to be in my corner, and who is just like maybe sometimes going to be in my corner. Because I had friends that came out and visited me, and family too, even though, like, when they visited me, I had like all these crazy knots in my hair and like didn't want to be seen. And like some of the time I would shut myself in the bedroom, and I was trying really hard to interact with them. And I felt awful and very ashamed that I couldn't interact with them normally and be the me that they remembered. But like, they loved me anyway. And so I am still, not that I would want to go back to that, but I am obviously still grateful that it showed me who's just there for you no matter what.
Yeah. And yeah, that's one of the great things about like the bonds we create with other people and the friendships we make. Like, sometimes you can make friends that are sometimes even closer to you than family, and the people who are going to be there with you, and the people like, some of the friends we even have, like the bonds we created, like, are strong, right? And we see ourselves in each other's corners a lot, and championing each other and caring for one another, And one of my one of my weird workarounds that I've like created as, I don't know, the depression hacker, it's more of like relying on the strength of the bonds that I've created, and so I'm hoping that I'm still cultivating like the bonds that I have with people and continuing to like strengthen those bonds, so much so that like, if I end up spiraling, I can try to pull myself out of it, like with a break glass in case of depression emergency plan that I enacted a little while ago, and based on like the caring and the bonds that I created, be able to pull myself out. And like, I hope that others who would be spiraling as well, or who would be distancing themselves, would also realize that like, that we're also here for them as well if they're like falling, and we want to catch them as well, and so that's, it goes both ways. Like the bonds are strengthened both ways. I mean, if you fall, I want to help try and catch you as well. And if like other friends we have out there like are falling and spiraling, like I want to send as much support and as love as possible to help, not pull them where they should be going, but help guide them back to where they believe they should be, and where they a better place they should be. So.
And I mean, so far we've mostly been talking about what it's like on our end, but there is also the thing that happens, where somebody else that you are friends with, either they're depressed and they start pulling away from you, and then you have to just like, you have to have empathy for that because you've done that to other people as well. But then another thing that I wanted to ask about is, how do you deal with your friendships with people who aren't depressed? And so even though they might clinically understand what depression is like, or, have listened to you a little bit and, be good at empathizing and stuff like that, how much do you filter yourself or change your behavior with them, or do you not do that? Or do you just be like, here's what depression is, experience it through my words?
To my really close friends and people who I've like really strengthened bonds with, I talk with them a lot, and I do, a lot of the hosts that we have, I've cultivated those relationships with them, and not everyone I have is just like clinically depressed or anything like that, but I feel like that I can get different views on Yikesland, on this Yikesland that I live in, and those bonds that I've cultivated, like they are strong simply because the friendship we have, and and everything that like we went through and like things we talk about, like I don't find myself filtering myself
Sure.
very much. Like I won't like go into like graphic detail on everything, but that happens with me. But at the same time, like talking with them and really like getting to know them and getting like opening up about myself, like I don't find myself like doing like too much like masking of that. I can do that with like maybe like coworkers or people who are acquaintances and things like that, where I won't tell them about like every horrible thing that's going on in my life. But I find myself falling into the thing of like, if people who aren't close friends know that I am depressed, which I think like now like
it's too late.
It's too late. Like I find myself just falling more of just like the mask of like, oh, I'm like over jokingly compensating for like, I'm fine, this is fine, I'm just gonna go home and get some sleep and hope I don't wake up, I'll see you later. Just but like I don't find myself filtering myself so much with like people who I have cultivated friendships with now, and a majority of my friends now do have some sort of like past bouts with like either like mental illness or depression, and like they know the experience, so it's more about like relating with them too. But like those who aren't in that state of mind, like I can still find myself like still being able to open up, and I do try to be like an open book. I don't like really like the secretive life of anything like that. So if someone was to ask me something, I would either be hesitant, but I would probably still like talk about it anyways. But it's not something where I'm just like, oh, I'm not gonna talk about that, bye. No, I try to be more open and honest about it and everything that I do. What about you? Do you find yourself like changing yourself differently for people who aren't are cut from the same cloth? I don't know what the word is.
No, I think I do in some cases, not because I don't have any problem telling, with people knowing I'm depressed or have a history of depression or other stuff. Obviously, so again, it's too late. It's already out there. Yeah. And even before doing this, I would try to talk about it on social media enough. And I say enough because I think that there comes a point where I've always feared that if you talk about your depression too much or issues too much, people are going to get irritated with you for being sad all the time. Yeah. Which is, that's sad. Like, you should be able to just talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that I've always feared. So I've tried to talk about it the right amount where I'm like, here is honestly how I'm feeling or what this is like. And even when I was in the Great Depression, and had picked at my face a bunch, there's multiple times that I shared selfies, on Instagram and Facebook of all of the pics that I had and was like, this is what I'm going through. This is what it looks like still a human being. Because I think there's some like physical dark sides of depression that we maybe don't see as much. Because when you're depressed, you tend to stay inside. And then when you have picked your face into a constellation of scabs, you're really ashamed of it. And so it's hard to show that to people. And it would take me a lot of bravery to go out in public like that. And it took me a lot of bravery to post stuff like that online where it's there forever now. But I thought it was important. And so I do tend to talk about it and be pretty open when it's a general sense where, if I put something on social media and somebody doesn't want to read it or see it, they can just unfollow me, Okay. And like, if it's not healthy for them to see it, or if they just don't want to, like, they don't want that negativity in their life or something, like, they can just unfollow me and I won't be insulted at all. Cause I'm like, they just didn't want or need that input, but for some people it would be meaningful. So I tend to put it out there a lot more when it's a general sense, or like this podcast where hopefully if you're listening to this, you haven't been tied to a chair and you're being forced to listen to me, but you actually want to listen to me. But with friends who have like never experienced depression, I almost want to protect them from me saying so many sad things in a row. Yeah. And so I do think that I filter myself. Not because I don't trust them with my inner thoughts or anything, but just because I'm like, oh man, why make such a happy person sad knowing the horrors that are happening in my brain.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't see myself like walking up to like one of my non-depressed friends or anything like that and just like, hey, here's what's happening with me, and,
Yeah.
and going through it. Like, but I mean, I will stay if they ask about it. I'll talk, but I won't like talk so much that it'll bring them down. But I will still talk about
Yeah.
it. You know?
And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with, like, it's if you are talking to somebody who's not depressed and you accidentally make them sad, it's not that you have done a bad thing, because at a certain point, if you guys are friends, they should just be like, hey, this is starting to bring me down, and either I do have the strength for that right now, or I don't have the strength for that right now, and either of those answers is okay and valid. And so, you know, it's not necessarily that we should be so afraid to tell our non-depressed friends that we're depressed or the nuances of what we're going through. Yeah. It's just that I do accidentally do that because I'm like, oh, but they're so happy. Let's let them be that way.
Yeah.
But I also, I would say for sure that the majority of my friends either struggle now or have struggled at some point with depression or other mental illness or other traumas. And so there's at least some common ground there where it is at least, you know, it's familiar territory for them, even if it's not what's happening to them right now. And so they're also a little bit more prepared to be like, to bow gracefully out of the conversation if it's about to hurt them. You know what I mean? Because it's not your responsibility to like respond and give energy to somebody like every second of the day when they're sad, you know, because then you'll die. Yeah. But if you do have it, you know, it's nice to be able to be there for people. And so I'm very grateful for the people who, whether they are or aren't depressed, do like listen to me whenever they can. And I try to be that for other people. And I too struggle with the thing where you don't want to tell people, no, don't tell me your problems right now, like, because you're going to hurt me or whatever. That's something that I think it's an important skill, but it's a hard skill. And for me, it's like a constant learning process all the time with every new friend that I make is I set this boundary with them, and then how do I re-express it over and over again with time or not, depending on whether it comes up.
Yeah. How do I walk through the minefield?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean,
but it's totally worth it.
It's worth it for, you know, the bonds that we create and the relationships we can create. Because if you have a strong friendship, if you have strong bonds with people, it can lift you up. You know,
Yeah.
it can help. You know, and they're there for you. You know, if people are out there who are listening and watching, like people who are your friends and people who are as close to you as your family, you know, they're there for you. And if you need them, you know, they can be there for you, you know, and at the same time, like, you can choose to shut people out, or, you know, like I did, or you can, you know, realize that like talking and being open and trying to not just isolate yourself is not exactly always the right path, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'd hope that like people out there can relate to that in some way.
And I think sometimes the concept of even like objectively knowing that somebody is there for you can even be enough over, you know, you don't necessarily even have to talk to them. A lot of times for me, I'll just think about the fact that I have somebody that cares about me so much that they would listen to me, and that makes me feel better and stronger. And it doesn't make me not depressed, but it helps a bunch, just the mere fact that they exist.
Yeah.
And I think the internet and like the way that we use phones now and social media makes it both easier and harder, because in a way, you have the opportunity to be in constant contact with somebody. And that can be hard if they are expecting you to respond immediately and you don't have the energy to do that. And especially if, you know, if they get insulted, they're like, why did they not respond to me? And maybe you just like have social anxiety, or you were feeling really bad in that moment, or you were legitimately busy, but then later your social anxiety makes you feel worse about it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff happens to me all the time. But it can make it a little bit easier in the sense that I have friends that I'm so close with them that, you know, if I message them and they don't respond, I'm like, whatever. And I'll just keep messaging them like 10 more things because I needed to say something. And I know that they'll read it when they have time or energy. And that they probably won't read it right now, but that they're going to read it at some point and care about me. And like neither of us is insulted at all in that situation. It's just normal. And they'll do the same thing to me where they'll like just talk about their problem, like paragraphs and paragraphs. And they know that I will get back to them at some point when I can. And so in that way, like being able to reach each other all the time is a little bit easier, but it depends on what relationship you have with that person, because you can't be like texting a casual acquaintance and then ghost them, like that's mean. But then I have friends I'm super close to where I'm like, I'm not going to respond to them for a week, and I'm not even going to tell them I'm not going to respond to them for a week, but they know what's going on and they're still going to love me.
So each bond is different, but you know, it's a weird minefield to cross, you know, and like you hope that you don't like accidentally or on purpose break that bond, but it does happen. And you know, our state of mind and living in Yikesland that we are in, like it's not always going to be perfect, and we're not always going to be able to hold, you know, the strain from breaking that bond. But
and there are going to be people that you legitimately can't be friends with because of the place that you are at or they are at, and you might just have to let that go, and that's really sad. But you also, you know, you have to protect yourself and take care of yourself, and they have to do the same for them. So, you know, you hope that in these situations, it kind of sorts itself out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when someone is in the state of mind that we are in, like, you can't, like, pull them in the direction you want them to go. They gotta they have to get there by themselves, you know, like, and that's true with this, you know, this relationship stuff that we do as well. We can't force someone to be friends with someone, or we can't force anybody to keep bonds with each other. But you know, it's all about, you know, hopefully that they can find where they want to go, and hopefully it leads them to a place that betters them as well, you know. And so the decisions that, like, with the relationships that I have and the friendships that I have, like, I hope that they last for a long time, and you know, maybe even forever. But at the same time, like, I know that, like, sometimes some bonds will fall away, but I don't, you know, I don't ever want there to be like any ill will or anything like that because of like where I am, you know, and the state of mind that I'm in. But you know, I hope that, like, where I am headed, like it takes me to a better place, you know, like you know, to a better me, you know, hopefully. So
I think inserting blame into the situation is never helpful.
No.
So it's just whatever. I always hope that even when I'm depressed and stop responding to everybody, that people will just come out the other side with me, and that when I'm like, hey, I just woke up, sorry I didn't talk to you for a year and a half, like I was in bed, my bad, they'll be like, oh, that's okay, happens to me too, classic. But you know, and it's not always going to happen that way, and you can't blame them or you for it. And I would encourage you not to blame yourself for the people that you know, cut off, because it's like, no, it's not, I guess it's not how everything would be if Yikesland didn't exist, but Yikesland does exist. And so sometimes that stuff is going to happen, and making yourself feel bad about it is just going to make things worse.
Exactly.
So,
and so,
you know,
like,
you're still good and they're still good, and maybe your paths have separated, and maybe they'll come back together someday.
Yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But at the same time, I hope that, like, both paths end up in a better place. Yeah. You know, and so whatever happens and whatever decisions, like, we make, you guys make, or people who are friends with you make, you know that, you know, blaming or, you know, being regretful and resentful or something like that as well, it's not the path to go. But you know, sometimes, you know, while distancing yourself can be detrimental to, like, getting to a better place, sometimes it's what you need at that moment. And if you do need it, step back a little bit, and hopefully the bonds you've created, like, are strong enough to hold that strain. But at the same time, like, you know that the people do care about you as well, and know that, like, people will always be there for you if you need it. But at the same time, if you need to distance yourself, that's one way to go, and hopefully that it can lead you to a place that's better, and not that you're on a spiraling self-destructive path. That's never the way to go. So yeah, I think with that main topic out of the way, I think we can end off on like a little tidbit thing. What's one of our cool little segments? Depression foods. Have you fallen back into any depression foods lately?
I have actually been eating almost regular person food recently.
Yes.
So yeah, like I've been eating a lot, and I have been hungry like a normal person, and I haven't been like I wish I had time to cook for myself and stuff like that, and like go to the grocery store like every day just to get the stuff that you want for just dinner that night, which maybe isn't a Wisconsin thing, but like when I lived in New York, you would just walk past 100 grocery stores on your way to the subway, and then you just pick up whatever you needed for dinner that night, and then you would cook it. And I do miss doing that. But
I do enjoy that a lot.
I've been eating almost like a normal person.
Oh boy.
So that's wild. But I will talk about a depression. This isn't a food, but it was like a comfort depression ingestible that I had in the past that makes it sound like it's about to be a drug. It's not about to be a drug. It's fizzy vitamins.
Fizzy vitamins.
Yes. So I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college. And in Italy, they take their vitamin. They're like I think the translation is effervescent. So they are effervescent vitamins, almost like Alka-Seltzer.
Okay.
So they come in a hard plastic tube. And it's like kind of a citrus flavor is the one that I used to have, and then you put it in your water and then you drink your vitamins.
Okay. All right.
Only I just would become really dependent on that because I'm like, well, if I'm not going to eat, at least I'll have these effervescent vitamins. So when I was super depressed and living in Florence, which how can you be depressed when your literal front yard is the Duomo? Because depression's not a choice. But when I was super depressed, I would eat, if I wasn't having spoonfuls of Nutella, I would eat the effervescent vitamins.
Nice.
So that's
Very
one
cool.
of mine. How about you?
Recently, I've been eating like a trash monster, but
Excellent, love it. Go on.
Yes, I've been having popcorn dinners.
I think I mentioned popcorn as one of my previous depression foods. So I am 5 stars out of 5 already on whatever recipe you're about to say.
That's right. And so one of the things I've fallen into right now is I will pop a bag of popcorn.
Okay, so like a movie theater style,
yes,
or like
movie theater style popcorn.
I just want the butter content is what I'm wondering about.
So movie theater style popcorn. I won't go overboard with like the extra butter and stuff like that, but movie theater style.
Okay.
Because I love the movie theater style popcorn. Take that, pop it, and then I'll throw it into a big bowl, right? And this will be my dinner, right? And so one of the things,
extra salt or no?
So this is what I'll do.
All right. I'm sorry. Continue.
In Asian cuisine, right? we have a seasoning, right? It's not really a seasoning. It's not supposed to be a seasoning, but we use it as seasoning. It's chicken bouillon, right? But it's the powdered form, right?
Okay.
It's like we use it to season stuff, but it's not for that. It's supposed to make like broth.
Yeah.
But that's what Asians use it for. And so I will take like a little spoonful of the powdered like chicken bouillon and just like
so that you can have chicken popcorn,
sprinkle it over my big bowl of popcorn and like toss it a little bit, maybe throw a little black pepper if I feel exciting about it.
Wow, that's
fancy. But that's what I'll do because I guess like I want to die sooner, and like I'm gonna up my salt intake because that's basically what I'm doing is basking it in chicken salt.
Yeah, chicken salt.
Yeah, so that's I've been doing that a lot lately, and I know that I probably shouldn't be doing that, but it's so comfortable for me to sit with a big old like
tub of chicken popcorn.
And it's one of my favorite things to do at a movie theater too. Like goes like just a big old tub.
Do you bring your chicken seasoning to the movie theater?
Like I'm going to think about it.
You could.
Like,
I'm sure you could get away with it.
And like fill it with some chicken. Yeah. Just like
because they say you're not supposed to bring in outside food, but they don't say anything. I was gonna say
no, we do.
Even if you got caught, like there's no rule about chicken seasoning.
Listen, I like flavor, and I need to take a trip to Flavor Town while I'm watching this movie. So yeah, that's my depression food. Is it gross? Maybe, but it's what I like right now. So thank you guys so much for joining us here on Yikesland, our depression and mental health podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Yikesland, on Facebook at Yikesland, Instagram at Yikesland_podcast. If you guys got any questions or topic ideas or anything like that, or if you just want to connect with us, just send us an email at yikesland@gmail.com, and we'll try and answer the emails from you guys if you guys have any questions or comments or topics or anything like that. So we want to build this community out and everything like that. Chris, if someone is feeling on the edge or is feeling just spiraling out, where can they go to
you
find
guys
some help?
can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's confidential. They're available 24/7. So it's a really great resource if you feel like you really need somebody to talk to and you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to. You can reach them at 1-800-273-8255. It's 1-800-273-8255.
Yeah.
So we want you guys to have someone to talk to, but I know there are times in my life where I didn't either have anyone or feel comfortable enough talking to anyone in person, or that was in my life. And so this is a good resource for you to reach out if that is what you need.
Yeah, and so thank you guys so much for joining us here once again. Thank you so much for making it to this Tuesday, because it is Tuesday, and every Tuesday with you is a wonderful Tuesday. So this has been your host, Jelani Hoon, along with host
Chris Fung.
Thank you guys so much, and hopefully you guys are out there enjoying the views from Yikesland.
Thanks,
Catch you
guys.
next week.